Hey everyone, it's Arfan here, and I am back with another guest expert interview. I have Rhonda Caudill here with me. Rhonda, how are you doing today?
Awesome. How are you?
I'm well. I'm well. Thank you so much for joining me today. Rhonda has decided to graciously share some amazing information with us today for the Successful Lead Generating Coaches Show. And I'm super excited to have her on here because one of my goals is to help to bridge the gap between getting started to also, as you're growing a business, you're trying to get to that next level. And often in my own journey, listening to podcast episodes, watching the videos of others who paved the way has greatly helped me to overcome challenges of my own. So I'm super excited to have Rhonda on here today. And Rhonda has a wealth of experience. She primarily works with a lot of Christian-based coaches, speakers, authors. So she helps them with self-publishing services as well as branding and web design with her company, Presentation Graphic Studio. So with that being said, I want to give Rhonda a chance to actually introduce herself, tell us a little bit about you and how you got started in this work. So I'll turn it over to you, Rhonda.
Okay, thanks. My background is actually in interior design and went back to school
Hmm,
at 47 and found that most of what I ended up having to do for my classwork was the presentation aspect of it. They were less,
really?
it seemed like they were less interested in my skills. They just assumed that I was a good designer. I spent all my time learning the presentation part. So I was learning all of the same things as the web design students and the graphic design students. And honestly, kind of it was beating a dead horse by the time I got through 6 years of school. So had a little sidetrack into cancer there for a little bit that put me
Oh
on the six
no.
year plan instead of 4 years for graduation. But my my Caring Bridge title when I was in cancer treatment was Passion and Persistence. That was the name
Mm,
of my little blog there for my friends. So I think nothing shows that more than the fact that it took me 6 years to graduate at 50 some years old. And at
mm,
that point, I was doing it more to prove to myself that I could than anything else. And I realized there was really a gap with a lot of the creative community with spending all their time, you'd like to think that you're doing design work, but a lot of
mm-hmm.
it's paperwork behind the scenes. And
It
so
is true.
at the time, I thought what my business was going to be was doing the actual presentations and using all the software and doing all the 3D rendering and all the
Mm,
tech things that I learned how to do behind the scenes. Because many folks my age in particular are very intimidated and overwhelmed by all the tech that comes with doing all the creative work. So my idea was to bridge the gap. And my mother used to always say presentation is everything. So
mm-hmm.
that seemed like a natural fit. And it's taken on several meanings as I've grown myself. So my heart is
Gotcha.
still in getting other people's messages out there in the best possible way, putting your best foot forward, making sure that you have a good first impression with your website, all of those things, and just
I
keeping your
love that.
messaging on point. So,
I love that. And that if anyone's listening and you hear the word Caring Bridge and you've never interacted with that before, I recently learned about that because a friend of mine, unfortunately, they're going through that. So it's actually a really great platform to be able to keep up with what's going on without having to also text or call every single 5 seconds and
it was
things
such
like
a
that.
relief.
So
Yeah.
yeah, it was
Yeah.
great to be able to send it to mass. So I really appreciate those updates because it really keeps me in the loop and it can feel like you're giving support in a way that I felt like maybe in the past it wasn't possible, or a lot of
Yeah.
people are going through things alone. So um, I actually really love your story and the fact that it just kind of all tied together, right? It's really cool.
Yeah.
So I know
God's
you're
taken it
gonna,
full circle a couple different times for
yeah,
me.
yeah.
So,
So we're gonna take it full circle more because I know today you're gonna talk to us about content and 10x, and I wanted to share it over here. What are you gonna share with us a little bit today?
I really have a heart for making sure that, again, that you're not intimidated by what you're putting out there. And if you've studied marketing at all in the digital world, you know
Mm-hmm.
that having your messaging on point and being consistent is probably the single biggest thing that you can do. Blogging is the best thing you can do for your SEO for your website. And just keeping your marketing messaging consistent is really important. And it's really hard. And it's really hard to edit your own work in a lot of cases. And so
Mm-hmm.
I feel like this just gives you kind of some lenses to where kind of a framework to follow when you're critiquing your own work or trying to just, you're sitting staring at a blinking cursor, trying to figure out
Mm-hmm.
what to put out. It keeps you focused on what your core message is if you
Yeah.
start with your values first.
That's awesome. I love that. So the core values can 10x your content creation.
Mhm.
And I really love that. So let's dive into that, right? So someone's starting, they're just like, wait, like I've been a coach for I'm getting entering this coaching world, or I've been a coach for a year or 2 years, and I'm really looking to get things cranked up to a higher level, bring on team members and things like that. Talk to us a little bit about the power of core values. And I know we're going to talk a lot about content creation, but just to
Mhm.
understand the idea of core values, where do we stand? What exactly does that even mean?
Well, first of all, one of the first things that just stabs me in the heart is when someone says, "Oh, I'm not creative," or I'm not this," or "I'm not that."
Yeah.
No, everybody is. Everybody is. If you're an entrepreneur, you have incredible personal characteristics that other people are not born with in a lot of cases. I feel like again, especially kind of reinventing yourself later in life, you really have to go back to that. So if
Hmm.
you go through the Simon Sinek, find your why, you've done any of those ideal client avatar exercises that you get from anybody that talks about marketing, it's super,
Yeah.
super important to know who your audience is, but it's also really important to know who you are and really own that and be
Hmm.
bold and get some visibility and be unapologetic about it and put yourself out there and just really trust that that is what is going to connect with the right people. You're not looking for every client. You're not really in a lot of cases looking for that ideal client because I don't know if that person exists, but what you are looking
Hmm.
for is the right fit. And that makes
Gotcha.
everything easier going forward. It's just a better client experience overall. So
Yeah.
starting with that and really connecting with people at the deeper level, I think your social media posts are going to catch people's attention and stop the scroll if they're the right people for you because you're getting that emotional connection right out of the gate.
No, that's super important. That's so super important because there's a lot of times, but it could be where I look at someone or I talk to someone and just kind of haphazardly putting things up versus operating through that lens of this is who I am. This is not just my brand, but these are my values incorporated with my brand and
Exactly.
creating a cohesive. So where does someone start to analyze what they've been doing? Where do they begin with this?
I always tell people to figure out what your gifts are. And that's back to that, like, oh, I don't have this, I don't have that. No, God gifted you with something that is different than everyone else. And partly that's your experiences that you've had and
Mm-hmm.
your aptitudes. Those
Mm-hmm.
things don't change over time. Your character does not change over time. The things that you're interested in the moment might,
Mm-hmm.
but the core of who you are really doesn't. So it just takes some time to sit and really reflect. And I like to do the exercise where you ask yourself why 7 times. I've
Seven
never really
times.
had to go past five before I was really emotional about it. Like, oh, okay, I get it now. I've gotten to the heart of this.
Yeah.
Um, ask yourself what, like, why do I feel that way? Okay, okay, well, why do I feel that way? And
Mm-hmm.
really dig deep. And I've got a handout which we will share with a very comprehensive list of words that
Mm.
can be your values. But I don't suggest people just go through the list and just pick the first five that jump out like one of those word search puzzles that goes around.
Yeah.
It's the first three words are your words for the next year. That's fine if you need some inspiration, but I would just really say go back to what were you really great at as a kid? What do people remember you for?
Mm-hmm.
What are the things that you've gone back to that still bring you joy? I'm never going to grow up and be an ice skater, but when I get those little quiz questions on social media where they're like, "What did you want to be when you grew up?" Well, I'm never going to be in
Mm-hmm.
the ice capades, but I'll tell you what, at 58 years old, I love going ice skating and I still do it with my kids because what I'm getting from it is the essence of that experience. So
Mm-hmm.
just really reflect and get to the essence of what it is about that thing that lights you up,
Mm-hmm.
and the things that you come back to again and again, and just sit in gratitude and recognize that you are gifted in ways. The things that come most easiest to us, a lot of times we overlook as our gifts
That's
because
true.
we don't have to stop and think about it. So,
That's
if
very
you
true.
have to go outside yourself for ideas, then ask the people closest to you, what do you think my gifts are? And there's
Hmm.
tons of good online assessments too. If you really want to dig into finding your spiritual gifts, there's all kinds of really professional frameworks for exploring that
Hmm.
too.
Yeah, that's very true. I'm glad you brought that up because it's very true that we can just kind of overlook our own gifts because it's part of us. It's right in front of our face. We do it all the
Mhm.
time, and just we just recognize that hey, this is a gift that not everybody actually has.
Yeah.
Like not everyone can do this as quickly or as well as you can. And that's something that I see a lot with coaches who are starting up, especially where they're trying to figure out like how do I get in this? How like what's my differentiating factor?
Right.
And for someone like typically may have worked, like for example, you mentioned the whys. I learned that concept when I was in college in my mid 20s, and
Good.
it's something that I use along the way, and I use along the way even now, after a decade of use, and it's something that not a lot of people know about that, right? Or
Mhm.
even just to be able to sit and go and dive into that. So I love that you mentioned that. Okay, so um, all right, so someone sits down, they do the work. They don't just take 5, 10 minutes, but they take like take like a good 2, 3 hours or a half a day or ponder for about a week and really come up with their core values. So they have a list of their core values. Is there a sweet spot? Do we do all 10? Do we do five, three? How much do we go with?
I would say if you're feeling completely overwhelmed, aim for three. My magic number is five for a whole bunch of reasons. And this is going to sound silly, but not the least of which because I'm very creative and branding aware all the time.
Hmm.
On Instagram, if you had five posts and you made each topic a different background color and you alternated them in that same order, you're
Hmm.
never going to have the same color top to bottom or side to side if you alternate five things in that
Mm.
9 grid. Mathematically,
Oh,
it just works out and
yeah.
it looks random, but it's also very balanced and it's very aesthetically pleasing. There's also 5 weekdays in a week. So if you
Yeah.
were only going to post about your business and you were going to do different things, it's also mathematically really easy to divide up so that if you sit down with a content calendar and you say, okay, you're really only supposed to be promoting 20% of the time. Oh, that's easy. That's 1 day out of every five. So your other
Yeah.
4 days need to be entertain, engage, educate, inspire, and then
Hmm.
promote
Hmm.
in
Then
whatever
promote.
order
Yeah.
you want to do. So it's just
Yeah.
five's the magic number for me.
Well, that's probably the strongest case of the number five I've ever heard in my entire life. So
I spend a lot of time thinking about this stuff.
yeah. So five, that's definitely a
Five
great.
is
I
perfect.
would yeah, I would say that's why I toss five out too as well, because I'm like 10 is just so much. But five is definitely a great one to go with because you can
Yeah.
really hone in on that. If anyone's ever taken the Clifton Strengths, they focus really on,
Oh
hey,
yeah.
do your five first before you go
Hmm.
into the 10 or anything above that, because it
Yeah.
takes a lot of time to gain mastery of those five, even
Yeah.
though we're already masters of it, in my opinion. It's one of those things where we really look at the balcony and the basement of it all. We can take some
Yeah.
time for it. So,
Well, and the point
um,
of the exercise is to focus your attention. So I feel like any more than that, and then you're starting to kind of scatter or you're kind
mhm.
of repeating some of it. So,
Okay. All right. So we sat there, we got our five, we got our five
mhm,
values. Where do we
mhm.
take this now? So now we have our five values on a paper, and how do we apply this now to our business that we're currently building or have been building?
Well, I didn't intend for it to lead into it, but so if you're creating content and you do follow educate, entertain, inspire, if you do that and you're sitting down to plan things out, you can start with your values and really sit and figure out where that dovetails with your differentiation factor. Like, what about you is unique? How can you
Mm,
share those stories?
hmm.
Um, what do you want to be sharing on social or putting out on LinkedIn as an article or some long form content? Um, and if you're doing long form content, it's great to actually have five topics in a long form post. Also,
Yeah.
mathematically works out really nice for you to chop it up and repurpose it for other things.
Hmm.
Um, so it's just a matter of, again, just using that as either a funnel or kind of lenses when you sit down and say, okay, how am I living those values out in my business? And then what does that look like in terms of the things that I want to talk about? So
Mm,
for example, my five are creativity, energy and enthusiasm. I kind of group those together, lifelong
hmm.
learning, generosity, and faith. And I talk about my faith a lot because that's an important component of how I differentiate myself. I do
Hmm.
prefer to try and support other Christian entrepreneurs because that's just my thing. Um,
Yeah.
and where that translates into, in fact, my newsletter is called the Friday Five because I just do that. So I talk about business and marketing, design, the web, my faith, and productivity. Because I'm
Mm,
also probably undiagnosed adult ADHD, so I spend a lot of time really looking at ways to maximize my time and to be productive. Partly because I feel like it's an act of worship if we steward our time well as well.
hmm.
So
Absolutely.
that kind of
Absolutely.
dovetails with everything else that I want to do. Um, and honestly, I have so much creative energy and so many things I want to accomplish with what time I have left on the earth. It's very important to me to maximize my time that way too. So I have topics that I am excited about talking about for each of those particular topics, but they
Hmm.
all are definitely through the lens of something else. Like when I'm talking about design, it's because I'm excited about somebody's creativity or
Hmm.
the generosity aspect of it. Like, hey, this person's giving back and has a really creative giving back program, something like that. And then the lifelong learning is an easy one to try and inspire people to just always be open to new things and not be intimidated and just sit in the gratitude with the tech that we have. That came out of someone's brain and their heart, and they genuinely
Hmm.
want you to use it and they want to make the world a better place and make your life easier. So the next time you're sitting on the help desk chat and you're frustrated, take a moment to be
Yeah.
thankful that it even exists because
Yeah,
our lives as
absolutely.
online entrepreneurs did not look even remotely the same 10 years ago. So
No way.
it's
Yeah.
actually amazing. So stop being intimidated by it and embrace it. You had to learn how to use the last remote control that you got with the last device that you bought, and you grumbled
Yeah.
about it, but you figured it out, and then you realized that all the new features were better than the last one you had, and then you never looked back. So
Hmm.
all of the tech that we use for our businesses and in our marketing and our systems and our funnels and all that can be the same way.
Yeah,
If I
embrace
can
it.
learn it, anyone
Embrace
can.
the tech. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Embrace the tech. The tech is super important,
exactly.
like especially embracing it because it's something that makes our life easier. Like even
It
taking the
does.
time to understand and learn how to use AI in the business and all the different type of funnel builders and all that stuff goes a very far way. As someone who does a lot of advertising, we heavily rely on those tech pieces being in place
Yeah.
because typically when someone's going to do it, they come to me last. It's like, hey, I got my
Yeah,
entire funnel, all this is built out, and I want to advertise. And one of the first things I do is I audit the actual platforms to make sure that we can track because
exactly.
we could be the best advertiser in the world. If I can't track, I can get you no results. So it's one of
Yeah.
those things where we got to make sure it all.
I don't build a website unless we do the strategy and the branding first. Because what's the point? What's your
Exactly,
goal? What are you trying to do? And
exactly,
then what
exactly.
tools do we need to get you there? Let's
Hmm.
streamline it to it so that it's the smallest number of paid tools that we need to get you where you need to go. And you honestly need to have those things set up so that we can integrate them with your site when we build it. So
Hmm.
it does really have to be reverse engineered if you're smart about it. And then you've got a system.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, absolutely.
yeah,
I use the analogy of if you ever look at and just observe a community, a housing community being built,
yeah,
um, you don't just see houses pop up right away. It's months and months of foundational work.
right.
And as soon as that foundational work is laid out, it's like boom, all of a sudden houses just popping up left and right. And I believe it's the
Exactly.
same way in online business when we're building a website or something like if we do the foundational work to, like you mentioned here, get the core values figure it out. Doing market research, getting on interviews with people, um, developing a good branding scheme of colors and fonts,
Mhm.
things like that. When it comes time to put the website together, it's easy. It's like, oh, I already know what my audience wants, what they're asking for, the right words to say,
Exactly.
and it's very quick right now. But I see a lot of the opposite happen. Someone's like, I'm gonna get a website. They put up this haphazard website, and
Hmm.
then 3 months later, now they want to edit the website. 4 months later, edit it again and again and again. It's a lot. It becomes a lot of busy work that doesn't really lead into any kind of tangible results.
I call it
And it's
procrastinating.
procrastinate branding. That's a new
Yes,
term. I haven't heard that
I
one
did not
before.
coin that term. I heard it somewhere in a Facebook group of other professional web designers, but I've completely embraced it.
I love that. That's awesome.
You
That's so
can
funny.
fiddle with your branding forever and you're working, but are you actually generating revenue and leads? So,
Exactly, exactly. That's the biggest thing, right? So, all right. So we really covered the importance of putting the values first and kind of operating through a lens, looking at our content, things like that. For someone who's already been at it, it's like they're the person who did, they did put up that website before even done a market
mhm.
research, anything like that, and it's really just all about them. Which is fine. You
Yeah,
started. Kudos to that. Be
yep.
grateful as you got started. You did a lot of work people never even do because they're just thinking about it, but you did it,
Mhm.
right? So or they're producing a lot of content. They're like, hey, Rhonda, Arfan, I really want to get results. I'm doing this work and it's like a labor of love, and I want to change it from a labor of love into something that pays the bills. How can they use these core values now to reflect back on the stuff that they've already put out and like take a good step forward into starting to generate better results?
Well, if you've already got a bank of content, you could do a couple of things. You could go back and actually learn a little bit about SEO and using your values as a guide, go through
Mm,
and optimize those things, kind of do some backlinking and connect some things together. Um, or you could rewrite those things and start kind of a new content bank where you just slightly shift. You don't want to just show up one day as a completely different person with completely different topics that you talk about.
hmm.
But part of why you're going to connect with people is your authenticity. So be transparent and say, hey, I've been a little unfocused on the stuff I've put out. I've talked about things that were meaningful to me, but I am really going to double down and hope to offer some value in these particular subjects. And what would you like to hear about? Just engage people and let them
Mm.
know that you're going to shift things a little bit. And then you've got some built in accountability too after you've put it out into the universe. But I
Yeah.
also find that the more outspoken you are about what those topics are, the more opportunities open to doors start to open when things align because
Yes.
you have said,
Yes.
this is what's important to me. And then, you know,
Mhm.
the opportunities start to line up. So I've definitely seen that in my own work.
Yeah, I love that you mentioned that because anyone who's put out content, you potentially could feel like, hey, I put this out and it was a waste or it wasn't
Mhm.
whatever. It's not too late to go back and use that or adjust it or edit it and
Yeah,
put it back out. Like one thing I do, my email list typically doubles frequently, and I'll go back at some of the ones that are extremely valuable, and there's no reason to reinvent the wheel when I already have
yeah,
it. Half my people didn't see it yet, and I'll maybe update it, make some adjustments, and resend it out, and it's always
exactly.
appreciated. And it's never anyone that's like, hey, you put this out, you said the same thing 6 months ago. No one's ever said that. It's always like,
Yeah,
hey, thanks for sharing this. Is
exactly.
really valuable. So
Yeah,
it's never too late to go
statistically,
back and
it's
change it.
very improbable that anybody, like, of all the things that people are going to email you about and call you
Yeah.
out on, that's probably not going to be it. So, the
Yeah.
other thing
No,
I would
that's
say is
awesome.
super important too. I just had a thought before I wanted to lose it. One of the things that I feel is really important, especially in your website messaging, but probably all your marketing messaging, well, not probably, in all of your marketing messaging, what's important is for you, again, not to talk about yourself like on your about page and it's literally all about you. Your about
Mm-hmm.
page on your website's never about you. It's about what results you can get for them.
Mm.
I heard
Mm-hmm.
somebody really smart the other day on a podcast. Actually, it might have been a TEDx talk that he did. And he said there's two things that people come to your website for. They want to find out, are you good at what you do? And can
Mm-hmm.
you do it for them too?
Mm.
And that sounds overly
Gotcha.
simplified, but it actually has a lot of depth to it. It's about the transformation that you offer. That's what you're selling. So,
Mm-hmm.
for example, I'm doing a website design right now for a lady who is a professional baker and she wants to do an online course, and so that's why we're building the website, but she also does like in-person classes and stuff like that. And
Yeah.
she said, "What should we put on the homepage?" And I said, "What we need on the homepage is to appeal to why do people want to do that? It's not
Mm-hmm.
because they want to learn to bake cookies. It's because they want to be the best entertainer on the block. They want bragging rights.
Mm.
They don't feel like they're creative and they feel like they really want some, like you'd be the perfect professional to learn from, that you'd be approachable and they wouldn't feel stupid and they would learn how to do it and they could express themselves creatively and have that as an outlet. And then
Mm-hmm.
there's the people that just want something interesting and fun to do with their girlfriends and it's just kind of a one-off thing for them. All of those things are aspirational goals of those particular people. And
Mm-hmm.
how are you going to get them there? And that's what we speak to. It's not about
Mm.
cookies. The
No.
website's not
Yeah.
about cookies. I got to do a lot of really cute little graphics with little KitchenAid mixers and little sprinkles, but it's not about cookies. It's about
Yeah.
inspiring somebody to try something new and have fun and be creative and express themselves
Yeah, go
and enjoy
deeper.
entertaining.
Yeah, go deeper. I love you. I love you mentioned that because I obviously, like I mentioned, I do advertising, and we create campaigns around these things, and
Mhm.
the same concept there. So I work with a client, and it's a more of a hobby niche, so it's teaching people how to do create canvases, but we don't ever,
Right.
say that like, hey, this is how you create this, whatever it is. Always like one of the ones we do during the holidays is take the hook of create gift worthy being we have to create the gift worthy. I forget the exact type off the top of my head, but it worked so well. And it was like we scaled that to one of the highest
Right.
levels we've ever had because it was so high. It was like, yeah, this is what they want to do. They want to be able to actually make these hand created gifts to give to
Exactly.
their grandchildren and their family and to have
Yeah.
something that's lasting and memorable. And it did really well. So
Yeah. And
from
it
that lens,
circles
the
back
messaging is
to
important.
it's about the why again. It's about their
Mm,
why. So you
yeah.
have to know yours and you have to know your potential clients. And I find that's incredibly important in the coaching arena because as a
Yeah,
coach,
absolutely.
what you're selling is your ability to get someone through a transformation. So you have to know exactly what your skills are and what differentiate you, but you also have to know exactly what you're offering that person. So
Yes, 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 absolutely. Awesome. Well, hey, I love this so far. It's been extremely helpful. I think it's something that when I first started, this is the information that I would have wanted to know because I learned this a lot later on, and
excellent.
it was towards the point where I was starting to hire a team. That's when it
Mhm.
started coming in, like, hey, we got to get the core values in place because. And when we did this, I saw personally a significant difference in the quality of team members who are now also operating from these values in the company and we get our results for our clients even skyrocketed. So
Absolutely.
really taking the time to figure out your core values and putting into your business goes really far. Rhonda, I appreciate you coming on here so much. I know you mentioned you actually have a resource for someone who's like, okay, I like this, I want to get core values, but I'm a little stuck on where to even begin. You have a core values list.
Mhm.
Can you tell us a little bit about what someone can expect for seeing that, so that way they use this the correct way?
Yeah, it's just a word bank. I've been adding to it as I've educated myself on this and seen other resources that have been out there, just to give somebody the most comprehensive starting point and literally just, go with your gut, surface level. Maybe you circle 20 the first time, but as you
Hmm.
ask yourself why and you go deeper, um, even if one of the decision making tricks that I use with myself is when I'm finally get it down to a few, maybe you've got 10, pair each one and say, okay, is this one more important to me than this one? Yes. Okay. And
Mm,
then compare them one to one and then you'll see them start to eliminate in your own mind and you'll see it's again the things that you keep coming back to over and over are definitely the undeniable winners on those things and you'll know deep in your gut what they are and then it's a
yeah.
matter of okay now let's look at how I differentiate myself. How am I living? How is my business as an entity living out these values? How is it
Hmm.
representing those things? Because you need to
Mm,
see that too. Um, Even down to what you mentioned with the branding colors. There's a lot of psychology behind selecting colors for branding. I'm sure you know that.
yeah. Yep.
I
Yep.
could
Yep.
talk about color psychology for hours because there's cultural influences. There's so many things that go into that,
Hmm.
and I've got a lot of creative tools at my disposal as a professional in the design industry. Um, but again, they mean nothing unless we have a strategy on how
Hmm.
like, who are we hooking in with an emotional connection to this particular combination of colors? What does it say about you?
Yeah.
Because your branding needs to be recognizable and memorable, and it needs to be meaningful. And that's what's going to carry you through. And then you just need to maintain that focus on your core values, focus on your content pillars, focus on keeping your branding consistent. And it's going to
Yeah.
accelerate your brand becoming just the growth that you're going to see with that.
Yeah, allow you to stand out too as well. Even in the advertising world, how do we stand out
Yeah.
from our competitors is interesting. So the call psychology, that's a whole rabbit hole. We could dive into that
Yeah,
very, very
that's another
deeply. So yeah, that's a whole another hour conversation.
exactly.
So, but yeah, it's super fascinating with that. I look at a lot of that too as an advertiser because we look at landing page conversions and it's amazing how
Yeah.
button colors can change from 20% to 40% all of a sudden converting
Yeah, if you've
goes
got
much
the
higher.
time and the budget for the
So
A/B testing, it's really fun to see the data come in on
yeah. Oh yeah,
those
it's
things.
extremely valuable. So, Rhonda, I thank you so much for joining me today. It's been a pleasure to have you
Well,
on to
thanks for
share these
having
tips with
me.
the audience. What we're gonna do is I'll drop a link in the description below for the core values list that Rhonda so generously sharing with us. Take a look at that. Use it if you have not sat down and really thought about the core values of your business. Take the moment to do so because it really will help to when you look at like the direction you're looking to go towards, it's something that can help to guide you there along the way to be able to put
Especially if
out
you're
the
building a team. I'm glad that you brought that into it too, because
yeah.
there's no faster way to make sure everybody's on the same page.
There you go. So you guys have it there. So Rhonda, again, thank you so much. And you can connect with Rhonda at presentationgraphicstudio.com. Again, we'll drop a link below for the actual resource so you can be able to connect with her. If you're looking to connect with someone who helps with branding, web design, or if you're looking to become a self-published author, Rhonda is someone who could definitely help you out. If you're a Christian coach or speaker or an author and you're looking to get the bestseller status or beyond. I don't know if there's a beyond or not, but I think
Yeah. Again,
bestseller is about
depends
to
on what
go.
your goals are. We'll get you there.
Yeah, awesome, very cool. Before we end today, Rhonda, is there something, right? So, one of the biggest things is on the entrepreneurial journey, it can be challenging. So, what's something that when you first started on your journey that you would have liked to know that you could go back and tell yourself, what would that be?
Probably the focus aspect of it, which is maybe why it's so important to me now, and sharing what I've learned and struggled with myself and sharing it with other people to kind of shorten the learning curve on that.
Hmm.
Um, you don't necessarily need to niche down, but I can tell you the more focused you are and the more singular goal that you have for yourself and what you focus on. What they say, what you focus on grows. It definitely does. And it's so much
Mm-hmm.
easier to do if it's just that one thing at a time. You know, neurologically,
Absolutely.
we cannot multitask. So being able to set up your environment so that you can focus on what you want is one thing, so that you're
Mm-hmm.
productive, but also just knowing what your focus is and what your most important tasks are, is super important to me. So
I love that. I love that. That's actually a really great tip for anyone listening right now. Like really focus in, and it's a really good point too that you don't necessarily need to niche down, like just the riches and the niches, and people who go very, very, very deep and sometimes still fall. So definitely, take a look at that in your own business. But I love that. Thank you so much again, Rhonda,
thank
and
you.
for sharing this information with us. So, everybody, again, thank you for tuning in. If you haven't, or if you don't plan on doing it, I urge you to go ahead and get the core values list. Really sit and take the time to do it. If you're looking for support along the way with this work, or even looking for more guidance on how you can take your expertise, figure out and hone your expertise. If you're a Christian coach, a speaker, or an author, or thinking about becoming a Christian coach, speaker, and author, definitely connect with Rhonda and see where that goes. You can visit her at presentationgraphicstudio.com, graphicsstudio.com,
Graphics, yeah,
and
two F's.
can definitely yeah, definitely connect with her and grab that resource. Again, everyone, thank you so much, and I will catch you all on the next episode. Have a great one now. Bye bye.